A villain in a horror film can take on a wide variety of forms. Natural, supernatural, alien, demonic, robotic, the list goes on and on. But some of the most popular and most terrifying horror villains are simply people. There's something unsettling about knowing the scary thing that's trying to get you is made the same way you are. They could be your coworker, your teacher, your neighbor, or even a member of your own family. What can drive a human being to kill? In this series, we're going to explore the various types of motives that drive characters to murder in horror movies. Motive is defined as a reason for doing something, so I wanted to look into the specific reasons these characters are killing within the movies themselves. Now obviously, most of the killers in these films have some sort of underlying psychosis or mental issue influencing their actions. The purpose of this series isn't to dive into those particular issues, but instead to look at things from the killer's perspective. Within their mental state, whatever that may be, what is the thing they hope to accomplish by murdering all these people? What is the problem that will be solved? What is the itch that will be scratched? What is the pain that will be lessened? So in this series, I'm going to be highlighting films that showcase different examples of killers that represent the video's themes. This series is going to revolve around human killers with real-world motives, so I won't be going into any supernatural horror motives in this video, no demon possession or anything like that. And fair warning, this video will contain spoilers for the films I'm discussing. It would be pretty difficult to talk about a killer's motives without spoiling who the killer is. I'm going to try to put individual timestamps for the movies discussed in here so you can skip a specific movie if you don't want to be spoiled. In each video of this series, I'm going to focus on a different theme. The focus of this video is revenge. Vengeance is one of the most common motives in horror movies, and slasher movies in particular. Somebody's done something bad to you, or someone you care about, and you want to punish them for it. Revenge has been described as a primitive, destructive, and violent response to anger, injury, or humiliation. If you're angry, you want to seek justice. If you've suffered a loss, you demand compensation. If you've been humiliated, you want to transform that shame into pride by turning the tables on someone, effectively switching the roles of the victim and victimizer. I won't be covering every possible horror revenge scenario here, but I wanted to take a look at some common and a few less common revenge-based horror movie situations. So let's get started. Perhaps the most common catalyst for revenge in horror movies is the death of a loved one. A person you care about has died in some tragic fashion, and somebody's gonna pay for it. In 1980's Prom Night, a 10-year-old boy named Alex Hammond witnesses his twin sister Robin fall to her death from a second-story window. A group of 4 children had been teasing her, scaring her. Their actions caused Robin's death. The 4 children make a pact to never tell anybody about what happened, not knowing that Alex witnessed the whole thing. 6 years later, those 4 children are now teenagers about to celebrate their senior prom. Alex uses this occasion to exact his revenge. He doesn't kill his 4 intended victims right away. He first terrorizes them with threatening phone calls, mysterious notes in their lockers. Alex wants them to feel everything Robin felt on that fateful day. He wants them to feel the same fear they subjected her to. He wants them to feel the same pain she felt when she died.
No one but us will ever know.
Tonight, it's my turn.
A similar rationale for murder is presented in urban legend. Brenda Bates has fallen in love with a boy named David. They were going to get married right after their high school graduation. But that was all ripped away from her when 2 girls decided to play a prank on David that would cost him his life. The 2 girls, Michelle and Natalie, are given a light sentence by the courts. They're allowed to go on with their lives like nothing happened. This enrages Brenda. She vows to avenge David's death, first by killing Michelle. She then targets Natalie. But Brenda isn't content simply killing Natalie. Brenda wants to make Natalie suffer. She starts killing Natalie's friends one by one. Brenda wants to make Natalie feel the same sense of loss she felt when David died. Most of Brenda's victims had nothing to do with David's death. Their murders are simply a tool for revenge against Natalie.
His name was David Evans. The one you and your friends decided to have a little fun with that night. The night you took him away from me!
The slasher Graduation Day deals with a high school girl named Laura, who collapses and dies unexpectedly during a track meet. Laura's death is due to an undiagnosed medical condition, but that doesn't stop her boyfriend Kevin from blaming her coach and fellow members of the track team for Laura's death. Kevin begins killing them off because he believes they pushed Laura too hard, contributing to her death. Unlike the previous 2 examples, Kevin's victims didn't actually do anything wrong. In fact, Kevin was part of the same track team, and he's even seen cheering Laura on with him during that fateful race. It's possible Kevin subconsciously feels responsible for Laura's death, and he's manifesting this guilt by blaming the other track members.
You killed Laura. You all killed her. Now you've all got to be punished.
Death isn't the only type of loss that leads to revenge in horror movies. The separation of a family can have a devastating toll on those involved, and sometimes that toll is paid in blood. Probably the most well-known example of this is Billy Loomis in the original Scream. Billy's father had an affair with a woman named Maureen Prescott. Billy's mother finds out about the affair and leaves them, breaking the family apart. Billy blames Maureen Prescott for his mother leaving. Billy kills Maureen, but this doesn't quench Billy's thirst for revenge. A year later, he targets Maureen's daughter Sydney, even though Sydney had nothing to do with the affair. Billy and his friend Stu formulate a plan to kill Sydney and her friends and frame Sydney's father for the crimes. If Billy's plan were to succeed, he would have literally destroyed Maureen Prescott's family in retaliation for Maureen figuratively destroying his own.
Your mother was f***ing my father. And she's the reason my mom moved out and abandoned me. How's that for a motive?
A similar situation is presented in Happy Birthday to Me. The killer is a young woman named Ann Thomerson. Years earlier, Ann's father was having an affair with a woman, and that woman got pregnant. The woman gave birth to a baby girl named Ginny, and when Ann's mother found out about Ginny, she left Ann's father, breaking up the family. Even though Ginny was only a child when this all happened, Ann still blames Ginny for breaking up her family. To get revenge, Ann begins disguising herself as Ginny, using elaborate prosthetics, and starts killing off Ginny's friends, all while appearing to be Ginny. Ann's goal is to punish Ginny by driving her insane and framing her for the murders. Ann hopes this will ruin Ginny's life the same way she feels Ginny's existence ruined her life.
That's why my mother left us. You can never forgive me for having you.
Okay, we've had 2 cheating parents. What about a cheating spouse? In 1986's Truth or Dare, a guy named Mike comes home early from work one day to find his wife cheating on him with his best friend. The incident drives Mike insane. A year or so later, he returns to go on a killing spree that includes his now ex-wife and former best friend. Mike's mind may be completely gone at this point, but he remains driven by the desire to punish his ex for her betrayal.
Then my wife dumped me after 5 years of what I thought was a perfectly good relationship.
Speaking of betrayal, it's our next topic. Getting screwed over sucks. Getting screwed over by someone you trust is far worse. If you're a character in a horror movie, be careful who you stab in the back, because they may turn around and stab you in the heart. The title character in the film Maniac Cop, Matt Cordell, is a former police officer with a good record until he begins investigating potential corruption in City Hall. The mayor and several corrupt police authorities conspire to get Cordell tried and convicted for crimes he didn't commit. Cordell is sent to prison, where he is mutilated and killed by the inmates he helped incarcerate. Cordell returns from the grave to exact revenge on the corrupt police force that betrayed him. Early in the film, Matt begins killing innocent civilians in the streets while wearing his police uniform. This causes panic throughout the city. The citizens of New York become terrified of the police, to the point where innocent patrolmen are shot to death out of fear they might be the Maniac Cop. Matt wants to ruin the reputation of the NYPD as retribution for those corrupt policemen ruining his reputation. He wants the whole city to see the NYPD as the untrustworthy agency he believes them to be.
It was a crime what those politicians did to him, putting him in Sing Sing with all those criminals he'd been chasing all those years. It was like handing him a death sentence.
Sometimes the pain and suffering felt by the killer is physical in nature. Whether it's an accidental injury or a deliberate assault, some wounds leave a lasting impression. In the slasher classic The Burning, a group of boys at a summer camp play a prank on a creepy camp caretaker named Cropsy. The prank was only meant to scare Cropsy, but in his fright, Cropsy is accidentally set on fire. He survives, but the burns he suffers leave him permanently disfigured. He's released from the hospital after 5 years, but society now treats him like a monster thanks to the way he looks. He tries to visit a prostitute and she's repulsed by his deformities. Cropsy kills her in an act of impulsive rage. The prank had deprived Cropsey of everything he enjoyed in life, but in that moment he felt something. He had a new purpose, a focus for all that rage. Those careless kids who caused this all to happen. In the film's climax, Cropsey wields a flamethrower, hoping to inflict a symmetrical injury to the one he suffered.
Man, this guy's burned so bad, he's cooked.
In the 1997 film I Know What You Did Last Summer, 4 teenagers accidentally run over a man named Ben Willis and, thinking he's dead, dump his body into the ocean. It turns out Ben's not dead, and he's pissed. A year later, he returns to settle the score, threatening them with the movie's title before attempting to kill them off one by one. Unlike our previous example, Ben's injuries don't seem to be serious. In fact, he seems to be in pretty good shape. Ben's quest for revenge seems to be a matter of principle. With his messages, he demands the attention of his victims, forcing them to acknowledge what they've done before he exacts their punishment.
Kids like you should be out having fun, running people over, getting away with murder.
Thoughts of revenge are especially likely in people who have been victimized and traumatized by others. In horror films, this emotional trauma typically comes from cruelty and bullying. The killer is the victim of a traumatic or humiliating event and seeks revenge against their abusers. In the film Terror Train, Kenny Hampson is the victim of a cruel college prank by the fraternity he's pledging. The fraternity guys convince their friend Alana to lure Kenny into a bedroom, where Kenny believes he's gonna hook up with Alana. But when he gets into the bed, instead of Alana, he ends up cuddling with the corpse of a middle-aged woman, a cadaver stolen from the university's medical school. The prank traumatizes Kenny and sends him to a psychiatric hospital. 3 years later, Kenny returns to exact revenge on those responsible for the prank, as they embark on a New Year's Eve costume party aboard a train. Throughout the film, when Kenny stalks his victims, he wears the costume of one of their friends that he's already killed. By doing this, he lures his victims in with a false sense of safety. They believe they're with their friends, so they're shocked when Kenny murders them. Kenny is essentially putting them through the same ordeal he went through, bringing them in with trust, then shockingly betraying that trust with something horrible.
Doc, we heard him!
What are you talking about?
Kenny Hampson! You're stunned with the corpse?
Well, nobody do that for a prank.
It wasn't just a prank!
The emotional scars left behind by cruelty in high school can last long after graduation. Such is the case in the film Ma. In high school, Sue-Ann is the victim of a disgusting prank perpetuated by Ben, a boy she has a crush on. To make matters worse, Ben humiliates Sue-Ann by gathering a group of friends to laugh at her misfortune. Years later, Sue-Ann is a lonely, middle-aged woman who befriends a group of teenagers when she buys them alcohol and lets them use her basement as a party spot. Sue-Ann's devious intentions are later revealed when we learn these teenagers are the children of the students who victimized and humiliated Sue-Ann in high school. Sue-Ann's breaking point comes when she's rejected by the teenagers, and the teenagers' parents threaten Sue-Ann, demanding she stays away from their kids. Sue-Ann organizes a basement party, where she drugs the teenagers and tortures them. The children are punished for the sins of their parents, but the parents don't necessarily get off scot-free either. Sue-Ann also kills Ben and Mercedes, 2 of the individuals directly involved with the incident back in high school.
What you did to me, the humiliation,
I think you're trying to get back at me.
it never goes away.
Research has found a link between the pursuit of revenge and a desire for status and power. When you've been denied something you feel you deserve, you retaliate in a misguided attempt to reclaim that which you were denied. The Vincent Price classic Theatre of Blood deals with a Shakespearean actor named Edward Lionheart who wants revenge against the members of the London Critics Circle. For years, these critics gave Lionheart's performances bad reviews, despite the fact he always played to packed theaters. The final straw for Lionheart comes when the critics failed to give him the prestigious award he feels he deserves. To make matters worse, they humiliated him after the ceremony. 2 years later, Lionheart returns to kill off the critics one by one, offing them in ways inspired by murder scenes from the Shakespearean plays that he last performed. For Lionheart, it's inconceivable that his work isn't worthy of the grandest praise or the grandest prize. He refuses to accept he's not the genius he believes he is. I'd mentioned earlier that one of the functions of revenge is to transform shame into pride, and Lionheart is one of the more literal examples of this. These critics have shamed Lionheart, and as the prideful actor he is, Their murders are staged as his final masterpiece performance.
What would his motive be?
Punish them, my dear boy, punish them. Just as you shall have to be punished.
When it comes to love, some people can't take no for an answer. If you don't give them your heart, they might just rip it out of your chest. The Australian film The Loved Ones offers a timeless tale of teen romance. Lola has a crush on a boy at school named Brent. She asks him to the school dance. Brent politely says, "No thank you, I have a girlfriend." Lola does not handle the rejection well, so she gets her demented father to abduct Brent so she can hold a mock dance in her home where she tortures and mutilates him. Lola's disturbing home life reveals her doting father will go to any length to give his princess whatever she wants, even lobotomizing his own wife because she apparently crossed Lola at some point. Lola has been indulged her entire life, to the point she cannot accept it when she's denied something she wants. Even though Brent was never cruel to her, Lola delights in making Brent suffer, simply for having the audacity to refuse her invitation.
And then I'm going to stab Holly in the heart, just like you did to me.
Losing a job can be very stressful. It can cause a person to snap, and in horror movies, someone snapping typically ends with a lot of people dead. In the slasher film Disgruntled, Matt McClane is the head of the IT department at Logan Online Publishing. Matt has a vendetta against the vice president of the company, Blake Logan. Matt has been sending out emails spreading rumors about Blake, calling for his termination. On top of this, Matt wasn't very well liked by his colleagues and several complaints have been filed against him. Matt's supervisor has had enough of Matt and fires him. Matt doesn't take the news well though. He lurks around the office after hours, hunting down former co-workers who happen to be working the late shift. The list of targets includes company VP Blake Logan, the man Matt had been trying so hard to eliminate. The list also includes several female co-workers who had filed complaints against Matt's creepy behavior. Most of the victims had a hand in Matt losing his job, directly or indirectly. It's also important to note that Blake is the son of the man who owns the company. Matt is essentially getting revenge on two levels. He's getting revenge against the individuals who wronged him, but he's also getting revenge against the company as an entity.
He was fired. It's about time. Guy was a freak.
Occasionally, the killer in a horror film targets a segment of the population because they symbolically represent the person they want revenge against. Their victims act as stand-ins for the people they wish they were killing. This form of revenge aligns with the concept of collective punishment, where one person is punished for another's transgressions, based solely on their shared group membership. In Don't Open Till Christmas, dressing up like Santa Claus can lead to season's bleedings, because a killer is on the loose and he's targeting anyone dressed like Old St. Nick. The killer is a man named Giles, who suffered from a traumatic Christmas event as a child. During a big Christmas party, he walked in on his father, who was dressed as Santa Claus, cheating on his mother with another woman. Giles' mother discovered this, causing his parents to fight, which led to his mother getting pushed down a flight of stairs to her death. To Giles, Santa Claus represents his traitorous father, and each Santa murder acts as a symbolic revenge for the death of his mother.
You killed my father.
He reminded me of Christmas time.
Another example of symbolic revenge comes in the 1980 slasher He Knows You're Alone. Ray Carlton's girlfriend Joanna dumps him for another man, so he responds by murdering her on her wedding day, which fits in with the rejection revenge theme earlier in the video. But that's not enough for Ray. Years later, he returns to Long Island, stalking and killing off soon-to-be brides. By killing these brides, Ray gets to symbolically kill Joanna over and over again.
This guy kills brides. Young brides.
The final form of revenge I want to talk about is revenge stemming from guilt. You did a bad thing and now you feel terrible about it. You try to make up for it by punishing the other people who did the bad thing with you. This idea is showcased in the 2015 slasher film Most Likely to Die. This film's killer is a guy named DJ. As a high schooler, DJ and his friends constantly bullied a former friend named John. They even got John kicked out of school and sent to juvie, which effectively wrecked his future and ruined his life. Years later, DJ feels guilty about his actions and comes clean to John about what they did. John responds by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. So now DJ feels even worse, and his guilt compels him to take some sort of action to make reparations. But his options are limited. He can't go back in time and save John. The only way he feels he can make up for what he's done is to get revenge on John's behalf, which means killing off his old high school pals who had a part in teasing and tormenting John.
We helped destroy John's life. All of us.
So that's it then, Kill us all, pin it on Ray, then you can sleep better at night?
That will conclude the chapter on revenge, but this episode will continue with Chapter 2, Desires. If that episode is done by the time you're watching this, that link will be right here, or down in the description. Otherwise, you'll want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the episode whenever I drop it. Until next time, later, Danger Seekers.